because it was time for a change. You know, Mother Earth is changing, we're changing with her, so I just wanted to embrace another scenery connected by her and truly. And so right now I'm at the river right now. It's so beautiful out here. Look at the sun. You know, we hold the light within us. And so that's what I'm getting for this message. Alright? Confirmation. For today, the message is divine is calling us because look at that. They're flowing with life. So literally, the divine is calling each and one of us to flow with life and to flow with the change that is, you know, rising within us, so we can, you know, reflect, document, and release any stagnant pain, any stagnant sorrow from our past that we experience in our childhood. So this message is for ones that, you know, that were more awakened than others when we were born. And, you know, right when we was born, we was navigating through these battles within our family tree, right? Because we was created for that. The divine created us to, you know, be the ones to hold the torch within the family tree that we was destined to be in. And unfortunately, those battles, you know, took us away from certain areas that we needed to activate during that time frame, but we didn't have no one to guide us and uplift us at that very moment, because we were uplifting ones that were in war zones and that couldn't sustain their sense of life. We were created for that. We were created to, you know, be the bridge within this reality, and to be also the bridge within the spiritual aspect of our being, to help our family out, because our family has been suffering for many of lifetimes. And so literally we was issued into this matrix of life, and you know, we was also in that war zone, but we didn't fully activate every aspect of our being. And so some of us suppressed it, certain areas, to be the one to navigate through those trenches of life. You know, I'm one too. I suppressed some of my areas of my aspects of my being when I was a child, to hold space for the ones that were around me, that needed my assistance, that needed my support, right? Because I was a support system. I was that guiding light for ones. And if you are here to hear this message, you were the guiding light to ones, to the families that were suffering within that time frame of life, right? And so the title of this message, is You stayed alive to receive this moment, right? And don't mind me like fidgeting with my glasses. Unfortunately, the other side broke, so I'm dealing with one. And I feel like that's significant to this message, right? We was holding on to one side of our childhood, and we literally had to suppress and detach to our other side of our aspect when we was as a child, because that was the only way for us to confirmation. That was the only way for us to, be quote unquote here in the physical, right? Because when you continue to activate, right, your conscious mind is not gonna resonate with anyone, right, at that time. So as a child, we knew that we was destined for more. Our conscious mind was going to awaken at a time frame, right? We already knew that, right? But we had to suppress certain areas to be here, to communicate to the others that didn't activate themselves according to plan, right? Because we were the ones birthed into this life so they could have a chance to activate that awakening state of mind. But unfortunately, we're not responsible to do the work for them, right? Because we are only this guiding force of light. But our responsibility was to support them at that time, right? Because a child is only going to communicate what they have been recording, right? Because a child is only going to mimic, right? A child is only going to mimic the parents and the ones around them. But if they didn't have anyone to really activate them, right? Activate us, if we didn't have no one to activate us, but we was mimicking our parents and everyone else that was around us, that means we didn't fully awaken to our childlike of being, right? And so that's what I'm guided here to say. And this message is for the ones. I wrote down some notes for this message. Again, this message is for the ones who were born awakened but had to suppress half of our awakening stages during our childhood due to the fact we didn't have no one to help us anchor anchor in the higher consciousness, right? This energy into this physical plane of existence. And we were battling a spiritual war with our families and friends and everyone that were connecting with us at that very moment. That could be teachers, that could be, counselors, it could be anyone, like a stranger that came up to you, right? We were all a supporting aspect to their being of life because they were not awakened. We suppressed half of ourselves in slumber at a very young age to be able to communicate to these ones that were in a lower consciousness of mind, right? Because a higher consciousness of mind, right, we're not going to communicate the same, and the lower conscious mind, they're not going to communicate the same as a higher conscious mind. So we had to suppress certain areas to be able to communicate to the lower conscious minds that were around us at that very moment. Some of us were seeing too much at that time. Some of us were hearing in other dimensions at that time. Some of us were feeling too much, especially if you resonate with being tuned in with the frequency of Mother Earth and the planetary movement of life. You was actually feeling so much at that very moment when you was born into that war zone, that you could really say, right? This is a message to all that are here to recognize we didn't completely, fully extend to which we were guided to activate our inner child at this moment of time, to receive our spiritual light being awakening. The more that you awaken, the more that you activate your light body frequency of life, because we are all frequency of light, right? Because again, we are these light forces of support systems, right, in this giving life. So whenever we continue to rise within the frequency of our being, we are continuing to activate certain parts that we suppressed in the past lives of our soul of being. And what I'm guided here to say is, some of us suppressed a lot within our childhood, in which suppressed certain areas within our activation within that time frame. The community outside of the collective consciousness of life will have so much judgmental opinions on us, but I believe we are just too magical for this life, which is designed to automation, to use auto mechanic machinery in this reality, right? What I'm saying is, you know, the ones that are in lower consciousness of mind, they use the automatic machinery that is being created for us at this very moment, right? Because AI is everywhere, right? That childlike, you know, sense of being is being lowered at this very moment, right? Because people are not creating the same. People are not creating with that spark within that light frequency. They're creating with machinery that is responding to them what to do, what to say, like an automatic system, right? They're becoming an automatic system, right? Which they're becoming more programmed at this very moment. And you know, a child that's being birthed at this very moment is gonna grow up with that automatic system, and which some of us, we grew up with not having a lot of machinery, right? We didn't have tablets like this. And I thought this was on. Hold on. Okay. Confirmation. You know, children right now, they're being birthed into this life with automatic machinery, in which it's gonna be even harder for them to, you know, be activated, right? Activated. And it was even harder for us without even a lot of technology, right? Right? For the ones that are guided here to hear this message, it was even tougher for us to activate without a lot of machinery that is programming children at this very moment. And now to have a lot of machinery, right? A lot of these technologies, right? These children are gonna have a harder way to activate within their life. And so us right now that grew up in that generation of time, right? If that generation of timeline that didn't have that much machinery and a lot of technology at that time, we're going to be birthing the new way for the children of life, right? And this is why, you know, I'm guided here to state, you know, if you are in your spiritual journey, right, which we are all in, right? But if I'm here to refresh your memory of certain areas that you have suppressed in your childhood, then I'm just that guiding light for you at this very moment, right? Because I don't know how much have you been activated. You know, I'm not in your life, but I'm just this guiding messenger that has received this message. And if you are guided to hear the remaining messages that I will continue at this very moment, then there are still certain areas that has been still suppressed, but we're taking steps, right? Because even if this matrix is going in a fast pace, being centered and flow with the flow of the rhythm of Mother Earth. We have the space to unwind fully, right? The world is lacking human intervention and placing human actions with machines driven operations to reduce human interactions will call you delusional for believing what love means to you and what love language you want to appear as if you are just a dreamer, right? Because at a very young age, right, all a child wants is love and care, right? But some of our parents and everyone else that was surrounding us at that very moment was lacking human interaction because of the booming satisfaction of the birthing of the internet was booming at that time frame. What else was booming at that time frame? MySpace was these brands, right? Facebook was booming at that time frame. Even YouTube was booming at that time frame. So a lot of people were distracted within that awakening status, but us, the children that were birthed into those generations of those past timelines, we are going to be the ones navigating the new generations of these children that are going to be birthed in these households and that are going to be destined to be these guiding light for the next generations of time. The Pisces, my fellow Pisces and the collective, I'm talking to, this message is to y'all. I'm talking to ones that are highly honored and highly favored by being who they are destined to be. If the world inside the matrix life has ones projecting process normalization to control the human comprehension of distorting the realness at this very moment, we are here to help build, to transform the robotic programming lines, right, that want to reduce our speed of energetic life, because these programs right now want to reduce our light force, right? Because we are gaining more activation, we are gaining more awareness, more awakening to our being, and we are remembering certain areas which will shift any reality of any soul of being at this very moment. The realness of this life is magical. Everyone can't live without the magical ability to turn attraction into gifted love, and kindness coming from the universe. So why speak suppression and any lower frequency into the existence over the ones being believers as the pillars, of magical forces that are turning a wasteland of darkness into a reality where love and kindness is felt without the need of stealing no one's light, but being the light, the sun kiss to the moon that shares the same glow of radiance, but in a different form of light. I'm here to speak this message to all, but mainly to my fellow Pisces that are gifting life a lifting hand for this planetary shift, right? Using the sacred words to vibrate into the universe of being a divine feminine and a divine masculine is speaking into the existence that magic does exist. We are the beings and the forces of light to create love and peace upon the earth for once inside the matrix, so they can hear the light flowing through our hearts to shift another, right?